His name will come to me at some point.
Okay.
I assure
but
you.
we're not Googling it because we're using our brains now.
Right. So, which is a much slower process.
Yeah.
Welcome to the That's Not How I Remember It podcast. I'm Mandy.
And I'm Jenny.
And we have been on a bit of a sabbatical.
Yes, we're teaching patience.
Right. We make you really want it. This is a very exclusive thing, our podcast.
Yes.
It was a lot easier to get together during lockdown.
Yeah, it was.
Life, with 4 teenagers is a little bit hairier.
Yeah.
But we are excited to be back. It's been interestingly, the book that we read, I had never read before. And so I read this book, I don't know when we read it, 6-9 months ago.
Yeah.
And I've struggled to recall it. Clearly because my brain has atrophied over lockdown, even more so than books that I read when I was a child. But maybe that has something to do with it being like such an impressionable time of reading books and things like that. So I had to do a little refresher this week of listening. I listened to the audio, which is really nice. The audio recording is very nice of this book.
Oh, I'll have to listen.
So the book that we did this time is From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler by E.L. Konigsburg.
Yes.
Do you want to give us the summary?
The summary of the book. Yeah. And I did read this book as a kid and I loved it so much. I just thought they were in New York and at a museum. And I don't know, I just was sort of fascinated by it. Okay, let's go. Claudia knew that she could never pull off an old-fashioned kind of running away. So she decided to run not from somewhere, but to somewhere large, warm, and comfortable and beautiful. And that was how Claudia and her brother Jamie ended up living in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and right in the middle of a mystery that made headlines. So this is about them running away. And it actually had its 50-year anniversary in 2017. Yay. So that's crazy. And it's another book that's from the late 60s.
Yeah, it came out in 67, won a Newbery Award. So that's the award for the best contribution to children's literature in the year it came out. And interestingly enough, when I looked this up, the runner-up that year was another book by the same author, E.L. Konigsburg, which has never happened before or since. So I thought that was kind of interesting that she was so prolific that year that they were like, hey, you didn't write but one, but two of the best books this year for children.
I mean, that's amazing. I read an article about her and it said that she had gone to school and studied chemistry. Not that you can't be two things, but it's just, one is very sciencey and different part of the brain. And then here she is writing children's books. And she said that this story came from another throwback to the early days of just letting your kids go wherever. She would take an art class in New York. So she would take her kids with her, drop them off at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and then go to her art class. So they would just wander around this museum by themselves at very young ages. And they did this for about a year. And one day she saw a piece of popcorn kind of hidden behind an exhibit. And she's like, oh, I wonder if someone's sneaking in here at night to have a fancy museum snack. And then that kind of gave her the idea of, I think I'm going to write a little book about this. And not only do they run away, but there's a mystery about a piece of art. And apparently, I had never heard of, I'm looking for it here. There was a piece of art that was bought at, some sale somewhere. Let's see. The New York art world was obsessed with the question of whether sculpture purchased by the Met for $225 was actually work by Leonardo da Vinci. So they were sort of following that in the real world. So she kind of took that and put it together too and made her whole her novel.
That's awesome. I didn't realize those things that that had inspired her to write it. That's kind of cool. I really enjoyed it. As I mentioned earlier, I hadn't read this book as a child, and when I mentioned a while back that we were doing this one, I learned from several people like how much they loved this book, including my own brother, who told me that this was one of his or his favorite book as a child, which shocked me because I don't remember reading it. I don't remember the title. I also work with someone who says, "Oh, this was my absolute favorite book as a child." And when I read it, I could totally understand why it would be. It really felt magical to the idea of, I mean, who didn't think about running away as a kid, right? You were upset about something and you think, I'm going to run away and they're going to miss me so much. And I'm going to, this is what's going to happen. But to run away and to be able to stay in a museum and it was just fun. But I also, when I read it, just had this like strong sense of nostalgia for that time period when, I mean, there are so many things in this book now that when you're reading it, you're like, okay, yeah, that could never happen. Right? That could never happen. So many things, right? And it did sort of had this sort of like joy of a time when kids could just have that sort of autonomy and independence that that just safety wise we don't do anymore, right?
No, we don't. It's like
we check buses to make sure there aren't children still left out. There's like my kid's school, the bus pulls over, there's a heat sensor that literally checks for the kids. The driver takes like the heat sensor to check that there's no children left on the bus before they even leave the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So, there's security in museums, that you couldn't just walk around in the middle.
Cameras following you around. Yeah.
Right? There's so many things that couldn't have occurred now, but it did just feel sort of magical to be able to, like, we're going to escape and we're going to go to the city and we're going to stay at the museum. And it was fun. It was really fun read.
Yeah. And I definitely thought that when they were on the bus, like the driver he kind of looked and didn't see anything. So he got off and closed the door and there they were. But yeah, now definitely, people check. Like if you're not at school, you get a phone call, right? Like, where's your kid? And then you didn't do that. So it was crazy because there's cameras everywhere now. And I thought about it, like, that's how kids, people get kidnapped, still, but sure. Like, that's how, like, you go to school, your mom didn't know if you were gone until after school. Right. There was no checks or balances on anything. And so yeah, I thought that too. I kept thinking that. And I was like, no, stop thinking in 2021. Like, right. Just erase your 2021 mind and go with it. But it was a little harder as an adult to be like, well, that couldn't happen. Right. And also the mom in me was like, oh my gosh, their parents must be absolutely insane with worry, right. Like absolutely. I never thought that as a kid. It never crossed my mind.
Right. I did keep thinking that, like, okay, these kids have been gone now for 3 days, like without a trace. And I just, as a parent, was like feeling panicked for them. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, we sent a letter that said, don't contact the FBI. And I was like, oh, how quickly was the Postal Service working back in 1967? Right. How long did it take the letter to get there?
Maybe it was better. I don't know. I'll write you a letter and we'll test it out.
Right? Reading it and listening to it again this week, there were some parts that I sort of struggled with the whole. I love the story of them going and staying at this museum. But the whole part with Ms. Basil E. Frankweiler, and then
it's not no Franken. She's not like related to Frankenberry.
Sorry, Frankweiler. Yes, she is Count Chocula's aunt. Sorry,
that would have been a good story.
That's a spinoff.
That's a spinoff. I'm gonna write that.
I was really it confused me at the beginning because she
Yes.
starts out the beginning of the book. She's writing a letter to her attorney telling this story. And then it sort of ties it up in a quick little bow at the end that I was like, I didn't love that aspect of it.
Right. And then it's like, I'm like, is her lawyer's last name or first name Saxonburg?
Right.
Decide.
Yeah, it was so that part to me, I felt like that. I liked the mystery of it, right? That they, had to go find her files and they had to figure this thing out. I love that. But just the very beginning and the very ending sort of took me out of the fun adventure of the, running away and the, trying to find out if this really is a Michelangelo statue.
Right.
So
I thought that too. I was sort of fascinated by the picture at the beginning, and it's got Mrs. Basil, let's just call her Frankweiler, is sitting in front of like the files that she kept all her secrets and stuff. And that, I mean, how cool would that have been to just like pull those open?
Yeah.
And last night I was looking in our basement and I found a wallet. I was like, I don't remember ever using this wallet and stuff. And it was actually, I'd never seen it before. It was my Aunt Sophie's wallet. So it had an old Dominex card and it's like preferred member since 77, 78. And then it had a Marshall Fields card of my grandma's, a credit card, and all these like cool things in it. So
artifacts.
I'm like, ooh, treasure. So that's what this file cabinet reminded me of, just opening something and just being like, ooh, what's this? And like wanting to learn more about everything,
right,
that was in them. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to know like a quirky, eccentric lady with, fun files and secrets, right? That to me, that could have been like its own story of just like getting to know more about Ms. Basil E, because she just seemed really sort of quirky and fun, and I loved her sort of snarky tone with her attorney.
Right. I wanted another book about her.
Yes, for sure.
And I like that, spoiler alert, that she was making Claudia and Jamie keep the secret.
Yes.
It's, it's like even before its time, it was like you have to sit on something. You can't instantaneously just divulge information. You have to, and I thought that was interesting and kind of, a wise woman showing Claudia that the fun is not necessarily the end of the journey, getting to where you want to go. It's the journey itself. Which was cool. But then I'm a little mad that I was in New York and this is not the museum that we went to.
I was going to ask you about that because I knew that you went to an art museum when you were just in New York.
Yeah.
But it was not the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art.
No, unfortunately. I don't know why we didn't pick I think the MoMA was just closer to where we were and we walked. And so we're like, we'll just go here. Yeah. So I kind of wish we would have.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I've never been there, but now for sure, when we go to New York, I want to put that on our list of places to go and sort of retrace some of their steps.
Yeah, and then I kind of kept stopping and I was looking everything up, like the cafeteria that they ate at, just every place they mentioned, and you got a little interesting history. I don't know that I would have taken a bath in the fountain.
No, I think there would be some probably chlorine or something
kept
in
dirty, there. My own dirt rather than other people's dirt.
Right.
So, and I guess I'm like, well, that was sort of mature of Claudia, because she wasn't quite 12. But then I realized she was the eldest of 4. And so that kind of puts a level of responsibility on you that
for sure
makes you a little more responsible. And so I was also wondering, okay, well, I'm always interested in the money exchange. How is today's money and their money working? So I guess they got 50 cents a week, or she did. And so that is $4.03 in 2021, which seems like a bummer, right?
Yeah,
but I don't, it just seems like 50 cents then seemed like a lot, like you could buy a lot with it. And today, I don't know. I wonder if
you're not buying a meal for $4.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe you're buying, well, I don't know. You might buy kind of a crappy ice cream sundae with it. The sundaes were 40 cents, which is, well, actually $3.20. So I guess that kind of works out to the same amount. And then you've got a little bit left. And then a train ticket in adults was $1.67. And today that's $13.46. So I don't know. I always like to do the math.
I love that you did that.
And see, what's going on. So
yeah, because I was thinking about that a lot too when they were trying to like budget their money to like what they were going to purchase. And then I do remember when I read this a few months back, they said they went to the automat, and I was like the laundromat. And then a few weeks ago on CBS Sunday Morning, they had a whole story about the automats.
Oh, I'm going to look that up.
It was fascinating to me about these like crazy like vending machines that they had in New York City that were like just like top of the line hot meals. But I mean, they were like, it was a vending machine, right? But it was like the first sort of start of fast food. In terms of like, you just put your change in and you would get like this hot meal. And there were these, ladies who worked behind the scenes to sort of like fill up the automat. Also like in like movies of that day, like the popularity of the automat. And I found it just fascinating. I wanted to find out more about the automat. So then when I listened back this week to the story and they talked about the automat, I was like, oh, the automat. I was finally able to make the connection. So that was kind of fun to sort of, when I re-listened to it, to be able to make that connection. Because when I read it, I was just like, oh, okay, I guess it's sort of like a vending machine or something.
No,
but
that's
I didn't
interesting.
Understand the, enormity of the automat.
Right. Because I was like, well, how long does the food stay there? Like, I didn't realize there was ladies behind the scenes. I'm like, that pot roast is going to go bad by tomorrow night.
Right. Right. Because I was having trouble understanding that concept. So I found that fascinating. Like I said, it just really was fun to sort of imagine. I love that Claudia's brother was Jamie, right? Because my older brother went by Jamie as a child, and so JB, Jamie, and so I really could just sort of imagine. Okay, what if my brother and I were in New York City?
Yeah.
And we were, like, okay, and he would be the one who would be like, no, you're not spending that kind of money. Like he would for sure have been the treasurer of our runaway gang. And it was just fun to sort of imagine that time of like just you and me and my sibling hanging out. And I tried to imagine if like my own boys were in the city on their own, like who would be in charge of the money, who would be in charge of making sure someone brushed their teeth and changed their underwear.
Right. That very responsible to change the underwear. Right. When they didn't have to.
And really thought ahead to like have it with them too.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and then putting it in the music cases was pretty spot on. Yeah. That just doesn't really draw any attention to you. It's just you see kids with music cases all the time.
And knowing like, okay, when there's school groups, that's when we're going to go to the cafeteria and eat, because we'll just blend in with the school groups, or we're just going to hang back at the back of the school group so no one questions why there's these two kids sort of roaming the museum by themselves. I thought it was just really like, I would just imagined what it would be like to be like, oh, and we're in that school group. And then there was the school group from their own school at one point. I was like, no one noticed them?
Right. Like, do you not remember? Like, maybe it wasn't there. No, but they saw their friends. I'm like, did you not get the field trip permission slip?
You could have saved yourself the whole trip into the city. You could have just disappeared on the field trip.
Save that train ticket. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it was fun. And I will say this. I don't know if you ever did this. I know that a lot of museums now do these overnights as like, I don't know, they're fundraisers or just for like another opportunity. But I went with each of my boys to overnight. Like I stayed at the Field Museum with one of them overnight, and I stayed at the Shed Aquarium with one of them overnight. And there is something really sort of, you feel very like, ooh, I'm here after it's, the doors are locked. At the Field Museum one, you could wander the Field Museum because it's so ginormous.
Yeah.
You could wander it the whole evening long, right? There were enough, lights and things like that. So it was kind of fun to go out at like 1:30 in the morning and take your picture with, Sue in the Great Hall when it was still there in the Great Hall.
Yeah.
Right. The Shed Aquarium was less, it was more like there was a lights out time, but it was kind of cool to sort of sleep under like starfish, that we're looking up at and stuff. So it was really sort of a fun, and not so fun on my back.
No,
we didn't get to sleep in a giant Victorian bed.
No, there was no, well, there might have been no, I don't think there was a bed at the Museum of Science and Industry, but my back didn't really think it was fun. And I think they did have a certain like curfew, like, all right,
yeah. Is that where you did the Museum of Science and Industry?
Yeah.
But was kind of fun, I thought of it a lot when I was reading this book about, it did have that sort of like special, like, like, ooh, I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be, I'm at the museum after hours sort of thing.
Right.
And so if you have small kids, check it out. If you have read this book and you think that would be a fun thing to do, check it out, because lots of museums offer them, these overnights. And they're well worth it to just have a cool experience with your kid.
Definitely. At least go through the museum when it's not quite as crowded. Like if your kid doesn't like crowds,
especially in COVID times, right?
Right. So, and I also noticed that she, the author, went by E.L., probably, again, not to have her name, a woman's name. So people be like, it's a woman writing this book,
Right? Yeah, we have seen that before, right? Of that trend of women using just their initials.
Yes, I think The Outsiders, R.L.
Yes.
Maybe
J.K. Rowling. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love, as an adult, the book where Claudia is like grown up now, right? And she tells us, that Ms. Basil has passed and the will has been released and she got the information. And I'd love the story of, her as an adult. Like, what is her memory of it from when she ran away with her brother, and, this experience she had with Ms. Basil and this information that she knew that she had all these years.
Yeah, no, I would like that too. Yeah, we have so many ideas about.
Right, I know. Everything. If only we were authors.
I know.
There's a Netflix show called Dash and Lily, which is based on a book series.
Yeah.
But in that, the girl has an aunt, like eccentric single aunt that she calls Miss Basil E.
Oh, so funny.
Yeah. So, and I thought that was really kind of fun that she, it was like this reference to, this book, because the girl, obviously in the books and in the movie, or the the miniseries, is obsessed with books, because it all takes place at the Strand bookstore.
I know another place I did not visit on my trip.
Well, we have to make another trip.
We'll have to make another one, because they were just so far north of where we were going. Yeah. So in the Smithsonian Magazine, there's an article about the 50th anniversary. Oh yeah. And like I said, was 2017. And, she explains that the Met is no longer lined with payphones, or automats are no longer there. But if you, the Met at one point did a tour of the book, like people kept asking. And so they were like, you know what, we're going to do the Basil E. Frankweiler tour of the exhibits, and some of them exhibits aren't there anymore, but like the bed they slept on where a murder occurred in 1560. I've read that. Like,
I want more about that information too. Did you read that, Jenny?
I read, but it was just sort of like, there was a murder in 1560. Amy Robart, the first wife of Lord Dudley. It didn't seem all that.
His name was Lord Dudley?
Lord Rob Dudley.
Oh, Dudley? Not
Dudley. No, deadly. Dud, like a dud.
I was sure he wasn't a serial killer. Lord Deadly. I just
She should have known before the marriage. Yes.
Small red flag. Small red. She should not have swiped right.
No. And let's see, what else did they say that was really interesting was that there's a movie that was filmed in 1973 in the museum. So it's based on the book. It's called The Hideaways. And so you can go in and, in the movie and see the museum as it was when Claudia and Jamie, lived there for that couple of days. It met with mixed reviews, the article says.
Well, wasn't there a movie in the 80s too? I thought they did actually made another one in the 80s, because that's what rang a bell to me when my brother mentioned this book.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was just like a made-for-TV movie or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, sounds like a good Sunday night movie there. But they say that you can, I don't know if it's available anywhere. There's a little clip of it we can link to in this article that I read. I just can't get this out of my brain. So I love the fact that the mystery they settled upon was this angel statue when the whole time they were sleeping in a murder bed. Mm-hmm. I know.
Because that to me would have been they didn't know. It wasn't in the newspaper. So I guess it wasn't.
No. Yeah. So, right. That seems like, well, maybe you want to investigate that too.
Right. Or find a different bed in the museum to sleep on.
Right. Because was there only one? There seems like there might have been other places to sleep, but, and my head kept going, oh, I hope, lucky it was a very old bed that it didn't crush under the weight of modern people. Not that old generational people weighed less. I don't know. I picture them brittler people or less preservatives in the food. I don't know. Yeah.
I want another, I want a book where Claudia is an adult, and I want a book where Claudia and Jamie investigate the murder bed. So I could, if it's too bad that E.L. Konigsburg is not still with us, I would ask her to write both of those books for me.
You know what? You're retired now. Why don't you take some time and read or write another book for us? I didn't read any of her other books. I don't know why, but since I liked this one so much.
Yeah, she's got quite a few.
A bunch.
I know that there's some still on the shelves in my library. So like Saturday with a View and a couple others. This book is also on my shelf. It doesn't get checked out, but now I'm gonna try and talk it up to some kids.
Yeah, put it on a shelf.
It's historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do have to suspend some of that, like, oh, this couldn't happen. Oh, this couldn't happen. It's easy to sort of get caught in that mindset. So you have to just suspend a little of that. Just go along for the ride.
Yeah.
And if you do, it is a really enjoyable, fun, like I said before, like it just feels a little magical of like the innocence of childhood and that sort of late 60s, early 70s time period when, there, wasn't a ton of child supervision.
Not a lot, a little bit. But, and I just picture like the late 60s cars driving down New York and picturing it a little smoggier than it is today.
And I know when it, like it talked about how when they read the article in the newspaper about the statue, like there was another small little article about how the two kids were missing. And now it talked about the jackets they wore. And for some reason, when it talked about the jackets they were wearing, because it was like the jackets they were wearing, just like every other child, in America. And I just thought, because they probably ordered from the Penny's catalog.
Right.
Right. They got them and it was like, you can have it in navy or red. Which one do you want?
Right. Right, because now nobody wears the same jacket, but then like there was the same boots and jacket and
and
hats.
They even talked about they had to make sure they took their names out of their clothes, because anyone who's watched TV for more than a half hour knows if you're going to run away, you have to take your names out of your clothes. And I thought, do my kids have anything with their names in it? But then I thought back to, back in the 70s, 80s, we did all have very similar, like, oh, I got the red coat from Penny's. Oh, you got the pink coat from Penny's. So yes, people had their names in coats a lot because
And boots, yeah.
Yeah, but right, absolutely, because they would get confused. So
Yeah.
there weren't as many offerings.
No, there definitely wasn't. And I don't know if in the book you read at the end, if there is an afterword from the author, says something more. And
I don't remember, because like I said, I read it like a while ago, and I didn't hear one in the audiobook.
So when I was just looking over it, she wrote it in, what year did she write it in? She wrote it in 2002. So it was not long after September 11th. So she kind of talks about that. And then also she says that kids over the years have asked her to write a sequel. And she wrote a small piece that was given to people who attended an awards banquet when she won the Newbery Medal in 1968. And she's enclosing it in the book. So I guess everyone go out and get the book and look at the thing. Mandy,
I guess
you can
I need
borrow
to.
mine. Yeah. But she says that the kids are as they were, and I hope they will be for the next 35 years. I wish them a happy anniversary and a long life, and I hope you do too. So I guess she wanted to keep them.
Just keep them as they were.
As they were. Which I guess I understand, but
I can respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, because when you think about it, sometimes when you do that, right, if you rewrite something, your image of someone changes. You know, obviously someone as an adult is going to be different than they're, as a child. So I can understand
that whole To Kill a Mockingbird fiasco.
Right? Yeah. Harper Lee go tell the Watchmen issue. Yeah, for sure. So I can respect that. I still want the book. I can respect that was her opinion of it. Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, I think it was definitely a good read. I love the art in the book. It was so, I don't know. I could just feel the kids, the expression the artists used. I mean, they just looked like kind of surly tweens, and I don't know. They were just, and then another thing about the book is that she never lost the brother-sister relationship between them. Like, they were always jabbing at each other. Yes. But he's like, stop going on about my grammar. And he's like, oh, baloney. They just like went at each other like siblings do. And it was nice how she carried that through the story, but also, they work things out. But yeah, but that she kept up, that sibling relationship throughout the whole thing.
That was a really well written, that's someone who had a sibling or who had, multiple children, because that sort of bickering that they did and the things that they would bicker about, really, you said we were, stay in, out. And he was like, that.
Stop it.
Little, that little, things that just, they couldn't let go. And I thought, yeah, that is spot on for, those siblings just know how to push each other's buttons.
Yeah.
It was good. It was excellent. Yeah. It was a great pick.
Everybody read it.
Yeah. It was fun. If you want to sort of hop back to, 70s, late 60s, early 70s, and sort of imagine running away from home and discovering a mystery and uncovering the truth behind the mystery, and getting to ride in a Rolls Royce, right? That was kind of fun at the end. Yeah. I got to take the Rolls Royce home.
Yeah, meet eccentric old ladies, and that's good.
It was a really fun read. I would definitely recommend it. And another quick read.
Yep.
Right? Another one of these short books. I don't know, these books from the 60s, 70s, 80s, they kind of had something spot on with their less than 300 pages.
Right. It didn't feel like a chore, just an enjoyable escape.
Absolutely. So. Well, this was fun. Yeah. Hopefully we will not wait this long to do another one.
Yep.
Life just kind of occurred.
Yeah. But we're back.
We're back.
Now we'll just call it season 2. I don't know.
Yes, right? Yes, I think that's
totally
a great
intentional.
Idea. Yeah, right. So. We're like one of those HBO shows that just has a limited run series before the season 2 kicks in with another limited run. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're not network. This isn't network TV where you're getting 32 episodes.
No.
That's not happening.
It is not. No. So.
In one season. All right. And if you have ideas for books that you want us to cover at some point, season 2, season 3, maybe, who knows?
Hard to say.
Reach out to us. We are Not How I Remember It podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of the above.
Yeah. What she said. Yeah. Oh, that maybe we'll have to edit that out. Yes. I don't know what the rating is, but okay.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. And we'll catch you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Sorry, Ben texted me.
I didn't hear it, so it's all right.
Sure, you're good. There will be half a mac and cheese and 3 ribs. Okay.
Sounds like a good time.